Hello everybody, my name is Christian, and today we are going to be talking about every new boss in Honkai Star Rail since the release of version 3.x. We are going to be tier listing them based on how much of a pain that they are to fight. The reason I'm doing this today is mainly because we've had a lot of boss discourse over the last year or so, because ever since the introduction of a lot of these new bosses, people have been very angry a lot of the time, and you know what? I completely get it, and I agree. So, I thought this would be something interesting and fun to talk about, is just going through my personal opinions on all the bosses, how much I like fighting them or don't like fighting them. I should clarify, the reason we are not talking about all of the bosses today is purely because a lot of the bosses you see on the bottom of the screen right now are just kind of jokes. A lot of them, if they are in an MOC 12, people will agree it is an easy MOC 12, with the exception of like Pule and Dam, because even Aventurine doesn't really get love like that anymore. That's why we're only going to be doing these bosses. I think these bosses have just been a different level of challenge. With that said, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, become a YouTube member down below, all that good stuff, and let's get into it. So we have a few bosses to go through today, so I'm going to try and keep this relatively quick. I would like to say we are going to be including Aquala on this list because they were a boss in AA, so we do actually have some sort of impression of them in a non-story based setting, and they were a brutal fight, so I will be including them on the list. I might include the blue bug. We'll see how I feel about that one, but as of right now, we're gonna go to at least Illwish. So the first boss on the list today is going to be Nicador. Now, Nicador has gotten a reputation as the poster boy of not that bad in terms of the recent 3.x bosses, and it is pretty valid in my opinion. Nicador has a mechanic where he will basically consume your soul and then put it on a pike, which goes extremely hard when I say it out loud, like, oh my god. But he has that mechanic, and if you destroy the pike, then it will restore your HP, and it'll deal a significant chunk of damage to Nicador's HP bar. This mechanic existing for Nicador has made that fight significantly easier for many players, and has made it a lot more viable for a lot of characters to successfully clear him when he is a boss on MOC 12. He has opened himself up to basically being a complete pushover to great AoE characters. There are even some other characters who are more blast style damage dealers that can still deal with him incredibly well. Off the top of my head, a few of the characters who can deal with him still relatively efficiently are going to be the Herda, and you don't got many good matchups nowadays, Evanesia, Mono Rem, and that also can include Aglaya, Anexa, and even a character like Faber can do decent against him. Also Sela. Sela's very good in Nicador, surprisingly. Overall, he has quite a few decent matchups. He has a good mechanic to play around. It's not going to be too miserable. He doesn't hit too hard, although he does have an incredibly powerful attack if you're slow on getting rid of those soul pillars, so keep that in mind. Overall, I like what he brings to the table. He's really not too bad to deal with, so I will fight Nicador anytime. Also, remember, this is a reflection of how I feel about them for the most part. I have an account with a lot of stuff on it, so just remember that. Next up is the Flame Reaver. Now, I have to admit, I hated Flame Reaver for a very long time. I really did not like this boss, and that also goes along with his APOC counterpart. The first time Flame Reaver was in APOC, I was having the worst time ever trying to deal with him because I kept trying to use Castros. That was a horrible choice. I switched to a Galaya Sustainless, and it went so much better, it's not even funny. So overall, I have a bit of a history with the Flame Reaver, but he is, I think, not the worst fight at this point. He is another character like Nicador who kind of gets fucked up by AoE characters. It is nowhere near as bad in my opinion, but you do need some sort of blast or AoE. You need to be able to destroy the clones that he spawned. It is unbelievably essential to get rid of those things so that you do damage to his health bar, and so that you can not get completely destroyed by his super strong attack. The amount of characters that can successfully deal with the Flame Reaver successfully, it's, I feel like, not quite as many as it used to be, but in turn, we've also gotten new Elation characters who do pretty well into him, because the way Elation works is just incredible. It goes into just about everything, but I digress. You still have characters like the Herda, you still have all of the Remembrance characters, you have somebody like Anexa who can do pretty decently, we still got Herda doing well on this. Finon is actually a very good option to deal with Flame Reaver. So while his pool of characters who can deal with him successfully isn't quite as high, like I don't think Break does very well into him, while that pool of characters isn't as high, he still has some okay matchups, and any boss where if you defeat the mobs, it actually rewards you significantly and does damage to that main boss. Any boss fight like that, I feel like is a bit more enjoyable for players. So for that reason, I'm going to be putting Flame Reaver in the not too bad tier. So now we get to Pollux. There are 3 bosses on this list today who epitomize you are just going to stand there the entire fight and wait. Pollux is the first of those. Quite simply, if you do not have Hyacinth to deal with Pollux, you are not going to have fun. If you do not have the HP scaling Remembrance team to deal with Pollux, you are not going to have fun. Also, since Pollux has initially appeared in MOC 12, they have buffed Pollux, so they do more damage, so now it becomes even harder to do the old strategy of level 1 light cones or level 1 relics, so that you significantly lower your HP. It has gotten harder to do that. People kind of just die nowadays when they do that. There is really just no winning. You have to play into the mechanic of Pollux, and there is really only like 5 characters or so who can successfully play into it, and that sucks. That's not fun. Nobody actually enjoys fighting this boss. Even me, as somebody with mono rem, I don't like fighting this boss because it's boring as all hell. You just sit there and do nothing for 3 minutes straight, and it sucks. For that reason, Pollux is the first of many to be going into the agony tier. Yeah, die there, you stupid dragon. Alright, so this is the first AA boss we're gonna talk about, Aquala. This fight gave me so much trouble. I was doing runs on this for over 2 hours to try and get a 3-star. I eventually got it. No, it was not recorded. Just trust me, it did happen. It was unbelievably brutal. This boss doesn't actually do a lot of damage, but oh my god, this boss takes an absolute beating from whatever you put in front of it. It's unbelievable. Not to mention, it is also an AoE boss and a single target boss. You can destroy the parts of it to remove them from combat, but then you're left with just the single body. And with that in mind, then you have to focus all of your damage on that. And if you're using an AoE character initially to get rid of all those other parts, you're now going to be doing worse against the central body. There are very few characters who can successfully do this fight, just quite frankly. The one I used to do it was obviously Mono Rem Castrus, but even then, it was a immense struggle. It was genuinely very, very challenging. So I don't even want to imagine the other characters people tried to use on this. I saw like DOT kind of clearing this, and after that, I think I saw maybe one Herda team, maybe one Finon team, and that's about it. Aquala was just an absolute demon to deal with. And then, not to mention, they also have an HP siphon into their base kit. So that makes it even harder if you do not have reliable sustain, which is almost like a guaranteed need for Anomaly at this point. Overall, this fight was very, very brutal. I don't think it was quite agony tier, because it's also Anomaly Arbitration, so you're expecting it to be very challenging. But man, I would not want to do this fight again. I think I'm gonna... Yeah, honestly, I think I am going to put this in the agony tier. This fight sucked, man. Next up on the list is going to be the caveman himself, Ligus. Now, I was very, very notorious for saying I think Ligus is one of the most unfun bosses in the game, and I still don't like him. However, I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of just gotten over it a little bit. He's not fun to deal with, but he's also not the worst either. If you have a good DOT team, if you have a good Saber team, honestly, you have Stila, you have any of the Remembrance characters, if you have Finon, if you have a lot of those characters, you can actually do decent against them. Obviously, his shill is specifically designed for Remembrance because his mechanic is linked to memo sprites disappearing and all that. And the problem with that is the only person who can successfully trigger that is Castrus and Evernight, and that's literally it. The other memo sprites all stay on the field. So you don't have those two characters, you don't get to interact with that mechanic at all, basically. The fact that the slowest part of the fight is just waiting for him to summon more minions, and he's not the easiest to break either, so it's really not that bad. It could definitely be a lot worse having to fight him. And then when you actually get into the fight, yes, he has an attack that is capable of insta-killing if you let it charge up too much, and that's why you need a strong AoE character, or somebody like Seela who can just tear apart mobs instantly. But there are a lot of characters who can do that nowadays. We do have a lot of options for that. So with that in mind, while I don't think it is the most fun boss fight, I think it has a lot of potential to be, I do think it has a lot of potential to be at least not awful for players. You have him giving you ultimates that you can make use of, so then you can actually just turn the tides against him like that if you're getting the ultimates on the character you want. And that can be a very, very big impact. Trust me, that's how I beat him in an anomaly arbitration the first time. That was without Hyacinth too. That was awful. Overall, not the worst nowadays because of the amount of options we have in this game. I am going to put Ligus, honestly, I think in not too bad, which is weird to say because I'm still a notorious Ligus hater and I will be till the day I die. But yeah, I don't think he's the worst anymore. All right, next up is the Judge of Oblivion. I'm going to keep this section brief. He is as bad as Pollux, if not worse. You need a shielder to even have a chance to deal with him because otherwise he will insta-kill one of your characters. You can try and break him. He has 4 goddamn toughness bars. You can try and now damage him. You will not be able to in time because he has immense damage resistance. You have to wait for him to summon his mobs, and then the mobs will also fight you, so then you need to focus on killing them while he is still attacking. And overall, the biggest problem is that we got a free Danheng PT entirely to deal with this boss. Players don't have that anymore, so your best option is going to be goddamn March 7th Preservation. That is unacceptable. You are going into the agony tier. This is one of the worst bosses we are ever going to see in Honkai Star Rail. I hate the Judge of Oblivion. Next up, Dark Sam. I don't actually remember what the real name is. I always forget it. It doesn't really matter. Everybody knows what I'm talking about with this guy. Dark Sam is a fight that is very specifically designed for break, but even more so, it is designed to screw over any sort of team that relies on dual DPS. If you are a team that consistently has a sub DPS or dual DPS in it, you are going to have a lot more trouble with this fight. So this fight was bad for Herda teams, it was bad for Mono Remembrance, and honestly, you might even be able to argue it might not be the best for Elation nowadays. I don't think it's that bad, really, because I think Evanescia can still deal with it perfectly fine. And while I don't know much about Silverwolf, I'm sure she can do it. I just think in concept, it's not that good for them. This is a fight that is very much designed for your hyper carry and for break. And for your hyper carry, there's an important aspect to think about here. Evil Sam, Dark Sam summons mobs. So you have to deal with the mobs, or else you're gonna cop a pretty unfortunate hit. With that in mind, your main DPS needs to not only deal with all the mobs, but also has to do damage significantly to him. So even characters like follow-up characters, they're also not gonna have the best time here because those are teams that are very reliant on multiple attacks from all of the teams. It is overall a fight that very much limits your options, and while I don't think it is ultimately the worst thing in the world, it's just not that fun. It's not a super interactive boss. There's not a lot you can do to kind of balance it out, make it more enjoyable. It's just there. It's just a fight. And while there are always going to be worse fights than this, you can't really name one person besides break players who are actively excited when they see, oh my god, Dark Sam. Like, nobody says that. Nobody's excited to see this dude. Maybe Archer players too. I think Archer players get excited to see him. Overall, don't love the fight. I think there are worse. So we finally get to use our last tier of annoying but passable. Honestly, I think it's pretty apt. Getting close to the end here, now we have Sparkson. This is a fight that is very, very different for players everywhere. Me personally, I love when Sparksy is around. I hate her as a character, and it is so easy for my specific account to decimate her. I have E1 Evanescia, and I have E2 Firefly. The moment Sparksy shows up in any form of content, I can just absolutely send her to the Shadow Realm. It's great for me. However, not everybody else gets that privilege. So, in terms of other break characters, because Firefly's really good for this, other break characters on the other hand, Boothill doesn't really get to have much fun here. Rappa, I think Rappa has more fun than Boothill, but it's still not exactly enjoyable as far as I can tell. So, that's not great for them. Then, both Elation teams get to do well here, but if you're not running an Elation team, that is where we start running into some issues. Some of the other best teams for this fight can include Anexa. You can do okay with Remembrance. It's actually not the best here. It's really not that enjoyable because the main draw of that team is getting to all attack as one, and you can't do that when Sparkson yoinks you into the sub-realm, so they don't do amazing, but they don't do awful. And then DOT is okay here. It's not the best, but it's okay. After that, a lot of the other options are just not great against Sparkson, honestly. So that really makes it a lot more difficult. Archer is kind of the final character who can do decent here. I know a lot of people were doing really well with Archer on the AA version of Sparkson specifically, and he can do pretty well overall, even in the sub-realm, which is nice. With that in mind, almost everybody has an Archer team at this point, and if you are a meta-conscious player, you went out of your way to get an Archer team at this point. I still don't think that is enough of an excuse for her to get any higher. While I personally like fighting Sparkson, this would be the ranking. She is easily one of my favorite bosses to go against. I have no issues fighting her ever. Overall, for the community, I think it's annoying but passable. And if I did not have the two characters that I have, I would fully agree, because I've had to do this fight without them, and it sucked. It was not any fun at all. Yeah, Sparkson is just a very, very specific boss where you either have her number or you do not. And I feel like it is probably the most, I don't know how to say it. I think Sparkson is easily the most situational boss in this entire game. Of you're either going to have fun or you're not. And there's no in between. Our next boss, Mecca Pom-Pom. So, I want your head on Nicador's pipe. This boss is just awful. I have Elation, and this boss is awful. I had E1 Firefly with a full invested team, and this boss was awful. This boss is not fun. You sit there, wait for the little pommies to show up, and then that is your only way to actually do damage to this boss, because you have to remove the goddamn damage reduction, which is 70%. That's not fun. You sit doing nothing for so much of this boss fight. And at least for the Anomaly Arbitration version, you could get a buff to make Pommy go faster. Anywhere else, you do not get that unless they've just like shadow buffed it or something like that, which I doubt they've done. This is just completely unenjoyable, even with the best teams for it. Like, wow, you have Elation. Okay, that's great. You don't have to wait as long to actually do your damage. He hits like a truck. It's still not fun. And then when the pommies show up, they just take away from the damage. Like, I'm using Evanescence, like I've mentioned. So then, when the pommies show up at the wrong time, I now lose so much damage on my Evanescence ult. That is just not enjoyable. It's not fun. The same thing goes for Break. Break can kind of circumvent his mechanic for a little bit because you can break him before he triggers the damage reduction effect, but you need to be fast with it, and it is still very hard to actually get that off in time. There's just no enjoyment to be had with this boss. I feel like we all know that at this point. I don't need to say it anymore. This boss is one of the worst in Star Rail, and at this point, it might be the worst in Star Rail. Mecca Pom-Pom sucks. It's going in agony. All right, this is the 4.2 boss, Illwish. Now, I do not hate this boss, but it's also not particularly a fun one. This boss is very uninteractive yet again, and they have an unremovable debuff. You need to attack to remove the debuff, and some characters are simply incapable of that. So if you are using a conventional action advancer, you're not going to be able to get rid of that debuff. You're going to be fucked over completely. If you're using any sort of traditional sustain, you're going to be fucked over completely. There is just no real winning with that specific debuff that Illwish had. Not to mention, the boss just kind of sits there for a lot of the fight and then absolutely nukes you with this scary ass attack. Like, I don't like it. It's just not enjoyable. And I also just don't love the aesthetic of Illwish. Looking at her kind of makes me uncomfortable. It's kind of gross, if we're being honest. This is a boss that kind of keeps up the trend of non-interactiveness and having a really annoying mechanic. The biggest thing is that there's nothing specifically about the boss besides that mechanic that makes it horrible, I guess. Because I did this with Firefly and Evanesia, and one of my friends did it with Ashvale, and even then their Sunday got hit with the unremovable debuff and it was still okay. This is a fight that a lot of teams can genuinely do. You just kind of have to deal with the debuff. Or you can attempt to zero cycle it, or you can attempt to sustainless it, which isn't fun per se, but it is possible. So if you can survive that, honestly, then you don't even have to deal with the debuff. I don't love this boss by any means, but I think compared to the absolute terrorists that are currently in agony, I don't think Illwish is quite as bad as them. We are going to be putting Illwish in annoying, but passable. And yeah, that ends off my list for today. It's funny, when you look at the tier list, it literally goes down. Like, it goes 1 in all fight anytime, 2 in not too bad, 3 in annoying but passable, and then 4 in agony. I don't know why, that makes me laugh. It's like a little stairway up. There are just a lot of pretty brutal bosses in this game at this point that I feel like if you are just not equipped with the proper characters, you're not going to enjoy fighting. And I feel like 4.x and the end of 3.x really made that hit even harder of you really need the proper characters or you're gonna have a bad time. That really sucks. I would really appreciate some more creative or interesting boss designs at this point. I'm not really sure if we're gonna get that. Graphia seems to be not nearly as bad for most players, at least from what we've seen in the story so far. So I'm kind of hoping that that'll be the case going forward. With that said, I really hope you all enjoyed this today. It was a lot of fun. Make sure to comment down below how you feel about all the bosses. I'm very curious to see because I feel like I hit it pretty well, but we'll have to see. I've got plenty more good videos coming out soon, so I will see you guys then. Bye-bye.